Marvel's The Avengers, the 2012 movie that really solidified the MCU as being something of a not failed project, essentially. I think maybe, I don't know. I'll be honest, I wasn't there for 2012. I didn't start watching the MCU in theaters till like 2015 or so. But this was the first billion-dollar movie of the MCU. This is what everything up to this point was building towards. This right here, the Avengers, was the thing. It's the culmination of Phase 1. It was the thing that proved that this thing was going to be a success. It's fantastic, I have to say. By the way, this is remembering the MCU. I'm going back to all the MCU movies, remembering what the good old days were like before things started taking a downhill turn. So today we're talking about the last movie of the MCU, or the last movie of Phase 1 of the MCU, and that is the Avengers. So we have gone through all the way from Iron Man to Captain America, the First Avenger, and now we are talking about the Avengers. Actually, fun fact, it's called Avengers Assemble in Europe. I don't know if you knew that. That is actually how I realized that my box set is from Europe, is because when it showed the Avengers, it says Avengers Assemble. I was like, what? And actually, interestingly enough as well, the title card does say Avengers Assemble in the movie. So that is the only minor difference, as far as I'm aware, of the European versus the American version of that movie. I don't know, fun fact. Anyways, so I have to say, I really enjoyed rewatching this movie. It was fun going back to this, especially after we've gone and watched all these other movies leading up to this. Getting all of these characters together for the first time was fantastic. Now, I will have to say, Joss Whedon is the one who directed this movie. Now, at the time, he was a respected director. Now, he's more of a disgraced director. There have been allegations of misconduct in the workplace from him. And to be honest, I am not really a fan of Joss Whedon as a person. I am not. It really started when he ruined Justice League. That was for me when Joss Whedon, that's when I was like, I don't like this guy, because he came in and just try to rework it all. But I have to say, in spite of that, this is more of a thing of separating the art from the artist. That's what this is going to be. And it's I think he did a really fantastic job with this movie. I don't think he's a great guy, but I think he did a really fantastic job with this movie. He knows how to get an ensemble cast. There's a few different directors that I can think off of the top of my head that have really pulled off the ensemble cast in the MCU. And Joss Whedon's the first one to do it. He's the one who did the Avengers, and the second one is James Gunn. He's the one who did Guardians of the Galaxy. And then you also have the Russo brothers, who did the Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, which they masterfully put together. They were able to really not make it feel like any of the Avengers were just being sidelined in Infinity War and Endgame. So there's only a few directors that really pull that off. And it doesn't work out well in other movies when you don't have that kind of thing. And I know that has been some things where people are have complained about some movies where they're just oh man, there's just too many characters here. And here, there's, I'd say probably, including Loki, probably about 9 characters that you spend a good amount of time with. 9 characters. I mean, you've got the Avengers, which are 6 characters, and then you've got Nick Fury, you've got Loki, and then you've got Agent Coulson. And then you kind of have Maria Hill a little bit more, but not as much. But those are your 6 characters, or your 9 characters that kind of make up the primary cast of this movie. And I think Joss Whedon just really did a good job with this, man. I tell you, he's done a fantastic job. This movie deserved all the praise it got back in 2012. the swelling, like the teamwork, everything that happens in the Battle of New York, everything fantastic. He even gets each of the characters right. That's hard to do when you're playing with other people's characters. It's hard to get each of the characters right, and their motivations to work with what you want. And also, and like another thing about it is, like, when you have an ensemble cast, right? Now, like, a lot of times ensemble casts just don't work very well. And a lot of those times it's because it's hard to tell these people apart, right? They just don't have very differing personalities. But here, I don't know if this is just because each of the Avengers have their own personalities, but it works so well because each character in the Avengers has a very distinct personality. And maybe a little bit simplistic. You can kind of sum up some of these characters in a few words very easily. But I think it works so well because it's like, okay, you can play into this characteristic and this characteristic. And because the characters are so maybe simplistic, but very unique from each other, people can play off each other very well, and it's easy to get people to work together well. I guess if that makes any sense. I don't know. I do have to say the plot though it's kind of simplistic. It's not super crazy or anything like that. Another thing I do have to say that I really, really want to praise this movie for is the fact that the characters are not infallible. I mean, that's actually a big thing in this movie, is that like when you get the Avengers together, you get them on. Well, first, there's a couple of fighting sequences where they fight each other, and there's some, like, they clash personality wise, and then you have the scene where they're all like confronting Nick Fury about phase 2 with the Tesseract. They're trying to build weapons, and it's like each person has their own reason to be pissed off at Nick Fury for that. Like, each person is like, and then they start quarreling with each other, and you have, like, Captain America obviously clashes with Iron Man. Iron Man's an egotistic, and Cap is a selfless soldier, right? And they clash together. Their personalities clash, and it works. And you see how, like, the way that they are torn apart it makes sense. It doesn't feel super out of place. It doesn't feel like they were working together and now they're not. They never were a team yet, and so they're just a bunch of individuals who kind of are starting to get at each other, and then they're torn apart. And then the Battle of New York, they're brought back together again, right? So they have that conflict, and they're not really a formed team. And I like that. I like how all of that works together, and I like how even in the Battle of New York, right? Because you have these moments in the movie of, like, triumph and then failure, and then triumph and failure. And so, like, in the Battle of New York, you've got the Avengers assembled, right? And you have one of the coldest lines in cinema history when Bruce Banner, he says, "That's my secret, Cap. I'm always angry." And then he turns into the Hulk and then punches one of the Leviathans in the face. And it's like, that is a chilling moment. And then you've got the Avengers, circling together, and that really cool shot. But even then, they're still not the victorious. They're still not the victorious team, because you even have a moment of despair in that battle, and I think that really, like, adds a hook to the battle a little bit more, instead of it just being like just mindless action that's just kind of eyes glaze over, from watching it. Instead of it being that, it's like, okay, you're tracking between what other people are doing. You have communications between the people, and then you also have moments of triumph and moments of despair within that battle as well. And then and then they end up coming out victorious because of the nuke hits the ship that the council sends in, and it all works very well. It just does, and this movie definitely holds up. And I have to say, like the CGI too, I think CGI peaked in like 2010ish. I think it got to a point where it was so good that it'll just hold up forever. I don't think there's gonna be at any point in time where we're gonna be looking back at these movies and be like, oof, oof, oof. That's rough, man. That is rough. I don't think so, honestly. There are some, like movies that come out today. There are some of them that we're like, yeah, that looks rough, you know. I mean, I don't know about 2024 because we really haven't had any of those movies that like really feel really rough. But like 2023, man, like we've had some movies in 2021, 2022, and 2023. But that is because these VFX studios are getting like really crushed, and it's not because the VFX technology has stepped back. It's because the artists are being overworked, and they don't have the time to make them good. So, but this just. The movie is terrific. This is just, it's one of the best. It's one of the best from the series. And it deservedly so made $1 billion at the box office and really allowed Marvel to be like, yeah, this is definitely going to be a profitable business for us, I think. So obviously, Joss Whedon is heavily criticized for his comedy in his movies. I think out of Phase 1, I think the only 2 movies, well, I guess 3 because Iron Man and Iron Man 2. The 3 movies that really have the like super quippy dialogue is going to be like Iron Man 2, and the Avengers. It wasn't quite as much with the Hulk and Captain America, and Thor. I don't think they didn't really have as much of that quippy because they were trying to figure out their styles. And, you know, like later on you have, like, this has been an effect across, you know, like all across cinema, you know, over the last decade, is that you see what people will call the Marvelization of cinema, which is like the quippy humor, you know, the meta self-referential humor that you see in stuff like Iron Man, that you see in the Avengers. And these movies are the ones that do it right. These aren't like, I'm not going to be criticizing this movie for doing all of that quippy referential because it did it right. It did that humor right because the humor doesn't take away from the story. It doesn't take away from the gravity of the situation that's there. It kind of lightens the mood a little bit, but also it doesn't really take away from that. And that is one thing that this movie does very well. And that is something that a lot of more recent Marvel movies have not been doing well, is balancing that humor with the gravity of the situation, and letting the emotions get intense and not just undercutting it with humor, you know. And also this movie is super quotable, man. Like I was watching through it, and there's just so many times where I'm like, there's that quote, and there's that quote, and that quote, and that quote. I tell you, it's a very quotable movie, and I love it. I love that. Quotable movies are great. Joss Whedon has done a really good job with reintroducing the characters again, like not just like throwing you in, but like giving each character a reintroduction. You know, like we've seen all of these characters in previous movies before, but he's just like, okay, and we're gonna we're gonna have a scene that effectively tells you about this character. And we're gonna have a scene that, yeah, like each character has a reintroduction scene where it's basically meant to kind of just be like, okay, this character, you know this character from over here, but let us just kind of sum up this character in this one scene, and that's good. I like that because it's not just like, I don't know, it's not lazy. I would say it's like you're actually putting an effort to make sure that even if this is your first movie that you've seen from the MCU. Like, you're coming in for the first time, then you can understand the movie and everything like that. It's not something that like Infinity War and Endgame could do, but that's like, you have so many more characters and so much more history that's just like, you know what? Let's just kind of roll with it. But here, at least, I think that was a great call. Yeah, honestly, this was a great rewatch. I am glad I was able to come back to it and rewatch this movie, and I think, yeah, this was definitely deserved the hype. It definitely deserved all the praise it got, and this one definitely holds up to today. So I am glad that I could come back to it and remember the Avengers. So if you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit the like button, and thanks for sticking around. And if you guys want to see more of these videos, you can see the last one right here, which is Captain America, the First Avenger. So I'll see you guys in the next video.